All right, let's dive into one of the biggest, most heated civil wars raging in modern gaming. And no, it's not fought on some virtual battlefield. It's happening in every forum, comment section, and Discord server out there. And it's a fight between two camps, the mouse and keyboard players and the controller players. And right at the very center of this storm is one feature, aim assist. And that, right there, is the million-dollar question, isn't it? When a controller player snaps onto a target and lands that perfect headshot, is that pure raw skill honed over thousands of hours? Or is it the software kind of doing the heavy lifting for them? The answer, as you can probably guess, really depends on who you ask.
For a lot of mouse and keyboard players, this feeling is, well, it's personal. This quote from a Reddit thread just captures that frustration perfectly. It's this growing sense that you're not just playing against another human anymore. It's your raw skill versus their skill, plus a little software sidekick.
But of course, there are two sides to every story. And the other side fires right back with an argument that's all about necessity. As this user puts it, look, this little analog stick, it's just not built for superfine precision. They argue that without some kind of help, it'd be basically impossible and just not fun to even try to compete against the pinpoint accuracy of a mouse.
And this analogy, wow, it just perfectly sums up how the mouse and keyboard crowd feels. They see modern aim assist not as a gentle nudge, but as a system that completely changes the rules. It's like it takes all the risk, and maybe all the real skill, right out of the equation.
So to really get what this fight is all about, we got to rewind a bit. We have to go back to the beginning and ask, why does aim assist even exist in the first place? I mean, it wasn't designed to start a flame war. It was actually created to fix a very real problem with the hardware.
Okay, so at its most basic level, this is what we're talking about. Aim assist is a compensatory tool. It's designed to level the playing field because we're dealing with two radically different ways to play a game. One is a super high precision tool, and the other just isn't.
And let's get physical for a second. I mean, really think about the mechanics. With a mouse, you've got your whole arm, your wrist, your fingers, all working together for these big, sweeping motions and tiny, precise adjustments. Now compare that to a controller. You've got your thumb. Just one thumb on this little tiny stick that has a dead zone in the middle where nothing even happens. They're just not in the same league.
All right, now we're getting to the real spicy part of this whole debate. Because it's not about the old school aim assist that just kind of slows down your aim over a target anymore. No, the fight today is all about one specific and very, very powerful mechanic, rotational aim assist. This is the thing that people say feels less like an assist and more like, well, an aimbot.
0 milliseconds. Think about that. That's the reaction time that rotational aim assist has when an enemy player suddenly changes direction. No human being on this planet can react that fast. Not the best pro player, nobody. But software? Software can. And that is what mouse and keyboard players are talking about when they say it feels inhuman.
So how does this actually work? On a basic level, it's a pretty simple two-step deal. First, the player just has to provide a tiny bit of input, either by moving their character or just barely touching the aim stick. And once that's detected near an enemy, boom, the software kicks in and literally rotates the player's view for them, tracking the target as it moves. And here's the kicker. You don't even have to be trying to aim perfectly for this to work. Analysis from the community shows it can activate with as little as a 5% nudge on the aim stick or just 25% on the movement stick. So what does that really mean? It means your normal, standard movement in a gunfight, like strafing side to side, is enough to turn on this incredibly powerful tracking feature.
So, with all that technical stuff in mind, let's formally lay out the case from the mouse and keyboard side. What are their core complaints against this system? Their arguments really feel like a chain reaction of frustration. It all starts with that inhuman 0 millisecond reaction time. That leads to the feeling that the software is just automating target tracking, a really difficult skill to master. The result, it feels like the skill gap, that all-important difference between a good player and a great one, is shrinking. And ultimately, it just creates a level of consistency that feels downright impossible for human to match.
This quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. It's not about the big, sweeping movements. It's about those tiny, instantaneous micro-adjustments you need to stay locked on a target. The feeling is that the software does these perfectly, every single time, in a way that no human ever could.
Okay, but now we've got to give equal time to the other side. Controller players aren't just sitting there ignoring these complaints. They have a pretty robust defense, and it's all built on the fundamental limitations of their device.
Their defense really rests on three main pillars. 1, like we've said, analog sticks are just not precise tools for aiming. 2, the dead zone on joysticks creates a kind of built-in lag that a mouse just doesn't have. And 3, without a strong mechanic to make up for all that, the huge majority of players would just get stomped in a crossplay game. It would be unfun and totally unfair.
You know, I love this take from a controller player because it's so honest. They acknowledge it, it's a crutch, I won't lie, but they frame it as a necessary crutch. In their view, it prevents them from losing because of a hardware disadvantage, not a skill disadvantage. It's about making sure the game is decided by tactics and game sense, not just by who's holding the better input device.
So with both sides so dug in, and frankly making some valid points, you gotta wonder, why hasn't this been solved? Well, that leads us right into the great stalemate, where it seems like every potential solution just creates a whole new problem.
Let's just look at the options. You could do strict input-based matchmaking, right? But that splits the entire player base and makes queue times way longer for everyone. Or you could just nerf aim assist into the ground, but then you risk alienating the overwhelming majority of your players. There are just no easy wins here.
And that brings us to the business reality that developers are facing. In most of these big shooters, controller players aren't just a part of the audience, they are the audience. They represent the huge majority of players. So any decision that makes the game less fun for them is a massive financial risk.
And just to make things even more complicated, get this. This is a statement from a studio head at Infinity Ward. Their internal data, their actual statistics, suggests that unless you're talking about the absolute best of the best pro players, for everyone else, mouse and keyboard players are actually at a statistical disadvantage against controller players. So the data doesn't even really line up with the popular perception.
Ultimately, when you boil this entire messy debate down, what you're left with is a battle between two completely conflicting values. On one side, you have the ideal of pure competitive integrity, where raw skill should be the only thing that matters. And on the other, you have the practical need for mass market accessibility, to make sure the game is actually enjoyable for the millions who play on a controller.
And that really is the final question, isn't it? As gaming keeps pushing everyone into the same lobbies, uniting platforms that used to be separate, can these two ideals, perfect fairness for the hardcore and total accessibility for the masses, ever truly coexist? Can they ever be perfectly balanced? Right now, that answer is still very much up for debate.